It's over!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams here.
Hi, you're watching Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get the show started. On the show today, experts blast Gautam Gambhir, the head coach, and Shubman Gill for what they believe to be an ill-thought-through selection for the second test against England. They say the selection process indicates many flaws and Gambhir's obsession rather than a vision in play. Is that fair critique? In chess, Magnus Carlsen takes yet another dig at D. Gukesh, but the young world champion gives a fitting response by taking the joint lead on day one of the Grand Chess Tour. Is Gukesh getting under the Norwegian skin? Indian football lurches again. Head coach Manolo Marquez has quit and the AIFF continues to stay silent. The cracks are only widening here. And in a tragic incident in Spain, Liverpool forward Diogo Jota passed away. Tributes have been pouring in from the football fraternity. His national side captain Cristiano Ronaldo has gotten emotional. But first, a look at the headlines on Sports 360.
Starting with cricket, Steve Smith has returned to Australia's playing 11 for the second test versus West Indies. Smith missed the first match owing to injury he suffered during the World Test Championship final. Captain Pat Cummins said while fielding, Smith will be given a different responsibility because of his recovery. Australia beat West Indies by 159 runs in a controversial first test. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka registered a thumping 77-run win over Bangladesh to take a 1-0 lead in the ODI series. Sri Lanka were bowled out for 244 runs. Captain Charit Asalanka scored 106. In reply, Bangladesh were cruising at 100 for the loss of just one wicket until Wanindu Hasaranga came in and dismantled the lineup. They lost 9 wickets for 67. On to tennis. World number 2 Carlos Alcaraz regained control in his Wimbledon title defence. After a hard-fought 5-set win in the first round, Alcaraz registered a straight-set win over Oliver Tarrant. In the women's draw, world number 1 Arina Sabalenka beat Mary Boskova in straight sets to enter round 3. Sabalenka is eyeing her first Wimbledon title. In football, defending champions Mexico and America will compete in the CONCACAF Gold Cup final. Team US beat Guatemala 2-1 in the semi-finals. Diego Luna scored a brace. Mexico, on the other hand, beat Honduras 1-0. Raul Jimenez scored the only goal. Meanwhile, shocking piece of news, Liverpool's star forward Diogo Jota has passed away. The 28-year-old died in a car crash in northern Spain. Jota was driving with his brother Andre Silva when the car suffered a blown tyre, resulting in the death of both the brothers. Jota recently won the Nations League with Portugal for the second time. He was also part of Liverpool's Premier League winning campaign this year. His Portugal captain Cristiano Ronaldo and other footballers have paid heartfelt tributes. Reports suggest Pakistan's hockey team will be allowed to compete in the Asia Cup in India. The approval comes after confirmation from the Ministry of External Affairs. The tournament will be held in Bihar between 27th of August and 7th of September.
A defeat always makes you rethink your strategy. It's something most sporting teams the world over do. But the most important thing is, are these changes a result of overthinking, knee-jerk reactions, or is there a specific goal that doesn't compromise what the sport is about and what it means? India seems to have got stuck between the two extremes when they announced 3 changes for Edgbaston, and that has earned them wrath from commentators the world over. I'll go through this one by one. Let's start with the issue of Jasprit Bumrah resting in. There was a thinking that this was something the Indian management should have played close to the chest. No one, especially the opposition, needed to know what India's plans were going to be with his appearance in this series. Having said that, many, like former India coach and commentator Ravi Shastri, blasted the Indian management and coach for resting someone who was going to have a bit of a break and have 7 days off as is.
You have the best bowler in the world and you make him sit out after 7 days of rest. This is an important test match, a must-win game for India. If they have to stay alive in the series, then you need your premier fast bowler playing. And no ifs and buts, he should have been playing.
Now, this is something I cannot quite argue for or against. The workload and how Bumrah really feels himself and how much of an impact this additional back-to-back test might have on his health and fitness is something only he could have answered. Moving on, the anger and confusion over why certain other decisions were made does call for certain debate. One, not having Kuldeep Yadav in that lineup, especially when you are going in with two spinners. You know that already. It stumped many experts, starting with Michael Atherton at toss to Australian voices.
India's selection for this test is baffling. No, Bumrah is one thing, but to only have 5 specialist batsmen is a gamble. The fixation on all-rounders has never worked. Specialists are always going to offer more over a test.
Tom Moody, who's been a coach himself, brings up one pertinent objection here. Coach Gambhir's obsession with packing in the 11 with all-rounders, when it's specialists who can go deep in a test. Now, I have a slightly different perspective. When you have decided to not have Bumrah in the mix here for this test, the point would be, naturally and logically, pad up and boost that bowling. Give it some teeth in his absence, something Sunil Gavaskar also agrees with.
If your top order batters are not giving you the runs you expect, then Washington at 7 or Nitish Reddy at 8 won't necessarily fix that, because they weren't the batters who failed you in the first test. So where you needed strengthening was in the wicket-taking department.
India had scored the runs. They had not taken the wickets required. But by not thinking along those lines, naturally your inclusion has only told England that you are on the back foot already and are not on the attack but on the defence. And let's take this further to point number 3. At what cost have you made this change? You've ended up sacrificing a batter who came into the series high on confidence. Washington Sundar was brought in instead of Sai Sudharsan. You've dropped him after one test. Again, a one-test removal that just doesn't send quite the right message to that entire dressing room.
Sai scored a crucial 30 and was involved in an important partnership in the second innings. Dropping a youngster high on confidence doesn't feel right.
Now look, all of this could come to naught if India does manage to hold its nerve and if England messes up, commits some grave errors. But question is that the attitude that you're setting forth here on? When we're looking at India's next era of Test cricket, the next phase really, is that the blueprint that you want to have from this point onwards? Have to talk about, of course, Captain Shubman Gill here. Really some resolve there, shutting out the noise and the jitters to make a solid century, and had to even take a break to get some treatment for his back during day one and towards the end of it. That resulted in the young, new Indian captain being booed by a section of English fans there at the stadium, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Ben Stokes, of course, silencing Yashasvi Jaiswal earlier after some words were being exchanged. The hostility and the steely interactions, that's just the beginning. There's that and more that this young Indian team will be subjected to, which is why not getting intimidated alone just won't do. It's not enough. The decisions you take off the field is just as important, to add to all the pressure that you will be put on the field. Can this Indian side give it back in equal measure? The world champion versus the world number 1. The Gukesh Domaraju and Magnus Carlsen rivalry is one of the fiercest face-offs in chess right now. Sure, they've played some thrilling games, but it's not just the battles on the board, it's the off-field tension that's turning this into the most watched rivalry in the sport today. Carlsen continues to undermine Gukesh's achievements, and the young Indian star keeps firing back. Not with words, but with bold, brilliant performances. Each time Carlsen questions him, Gukesh just proves him wrong. So is the world number 1 feeling threatened by Gukesh's meteoric rise? Now, the two have crossed paths frequently this year, most notably at Norway Chess, Carlsen's home turf there. And guess what? Gukesh beat Carlsen in the classical format, the first time for the 19-year-old prodigy ever. A statement victory that turned heads across the chess world. He finished third behind Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana, but that didn't stop the likes of Hikaru Nakamura, Caruana himself and Carlsen from continuing to downplay Gukesh's potential and the achievements. Then, now is the Grand Chess Tour. That's what's upon us, a rapid and blitz format, different from classical, but with the same big names involved. And Carlsen, he still couldn't resist. The friction is visible every time you see the two. Gukesh quietly takes a seat beside right next to Carlson, and Carlson barely notices. But when he finally does, there's an awkward handshake that follows. That body language spoke volumes of the kind of rapport that they share, and then, of course, came the words.
Gukesh hasn't done anything to indicate that he's going to do well in such a tournament. Playing him in this tournament, I will approach it as if I'm playing one of the presumably weaker players.
Sure, Carlson backtracked a little, saying Gukesh did well previously and might do better this time. But let's be honest, why not give Gukesh the credit he's earned and rightly deserves? And Carlson has been relentless since Gukesh won the World Championship in particular, questioning his game, his approach, even his right to be called champion. And what Carlson seems to forget is that Gukesh is just 19, so there's a lot of him still left to come at Carlson. And while Carlson talks, Gukesh performs. On day one of the Grand Chess Tour, Gukesh shut down critics, at least for now, finishing as joint leader alongside Carlson himself. He even beat Alireza Firuza, the very player Carlson tipped to be title favourite before the tournament. And of course, the contrast in this standoff couldn't be more apparent and visible. Carlson uses sarcasm. Gukesh, he sticks to substance. Even when Carlson questioned Gukesh's World Championship win, Gukesh was unmoved.
I get that maybe in some of the games, the quality was not high. But I think the World Championship matches are decided not purely by chess, but by who has the better character. And I think those qualities I did show quite well.
Yes, Carlson has been the gold standard for years now, but sometimes character matters more than just credentials. And that's what makes Gukesh dangerous. He's talented and he's grounded. It's about beating the perception that the West seems to be working hard to establish, that a world champion does not play like one. Gukesh is leading a charge to banish that thought. He isn't just playing the game, he isn't just playing the opponent, he's trying to change it. And he's not alone in this battle. Pragyananda is on the prowl. He drew his games against Firuza, recently rose to number 4 in the rankings, becoming India's highest ranked player. He gave a tough fight to Carlson in the 2023 World Cup final too. Then there's Arjun Erigesi. He isn't far behind either. He's 5th in the rankings. So every time Carlson points a finger at Gukesh, he needs to be reminded that it isn't just about Gukesh anymore. He's questioning the future and potential of Indian chess, which clearly is in safe hands. Indian football is entering yet another so-called new era because head coach Manolo Marquez has stepped down, citing mutual agreement with the board. But let's be real, this isn't new. Chop, change, experiment, repeat. That's become the template of Indian football. But here's the problem. It's not taking the country forward. It's just pulling it down. And at the center of it all, the All India Football Federation, living in a bubble of delusion. When Marquez was brought in, hopes were sky high. One of the most successful coaches in the Indian Super League, his merit was unquestionable. But here's what the AIF conveniently ignored. Marquez was still coaching FC Goa. A dual role, especially in football, is quite hectic. The club football season is already long, and then, of course, the added pressure of managing a national side which is struggling can be exhausting. During his time as India coach, though, Marquez still won the Super Cup with Goa. But for the national team, it was nothing short of disaster. Just one win in 8 matches for India from a coach who's won 40 out of 66 for Goa and nearly 50% in his career. Something clearly wasn't sitting right. So why did AIFF even allow him to take on the two roles? Was the federation that desperate to appoint someone to even allow a certain sense of compromise that could arise given the schedule, given how hectic it can be? Because let's not forget, any top manager would kill to coach an international side. Pep Guardiola has openly spoken about his dream to manage a national team. Carlo Ancelotti left Real Madrid to lead Brazil's fight back. India might not be a football powerhouse, but coaching a rising nation is still a challenge worth taking. So if Marquez didn't treat the India job as priority, that's not on him. That's a question for AIFF. Why offer a dual role deal in the first place at all? And if the board was so sure this was the way forward, why pull the plug after just 8 matches? It's a pattern. Look back to the Igor Stimac times. He brought India back into the top 100 FIFA rankings, but one rough patch and the AIFF lost patience.
And after each reversal, supporters will criticize either players or the coach. That is not where they should be pointing fingers. The future will show how right I was. I was clear about what needs to be done to get in a good place, but not many who run football cared.
This was late last year. Now the future is here and Stimac was spot on. Nothing has changed. Marquez lasted less than a year, the shortest stint for any India coach in the last decade. And even before he resigned, there were whispers that he wanted out. But AIFF, they said it must go through the proper channels. Translation, ego before action. That's the real crisis in Indian football. Fragile egos, zero accountability. When India lost to Hong Kong 1-0, fans were outraged. Pundits were gutted. Inside the dressing room, it felt like a funeral. That's exactly what the coaches said. And yet, the AIFF, they were busy bragging.
He questioned what we did in the last 2.5 years, but we are planning for 10 years ahead. We should not look at what's happening immediately. We should focus on the 10-year plan we are working on. Blaming is the easiest way. It shows the weakness in your character.
10-year plan. Let's talk about reality. The very next move was to remove the Indian Super League from the next roster. The country's premier football tournament now since 2014. Now on ice. Reportedly due to a legal contract issue, and unless it's resolved, no ISL next season. And here's the irony. Stimac once urged AIFF to raise the standard of the ISL, make it bigger. And by that, I'm pretty sure he didn't mean cancel it altogether. Right now, both the league and the national team are in free fall. There's no replacement for Marquez yet, no clarity, no sense of urgency.
We will take a couple of days to prepare to frame a job profile and then we'll put it out. Let everyone apply and then we'll take a call.
That's the current state of Indian football. No ownership, no vision, no direction. They talk about 10-year plans but can't even manage 10 games. It's time they stop blaming just the coaches. The real overhaul needed is not in the dressing room or on the bench, but in the boardroom. Until AIFF stops making excuses and starts taking responsibility, Indian football will remain stuck in neutral gear while the rest of the world is accelerating ahead. Time for last serve. The British Grand Prix is less than 3 days away, but before McLaren and Williams cars take up the racing track, they had a long pit stop outside Downing Street. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer hosted F1 to celebrate 75 years of the sport. Take a look. Well, that wraps it up here on First Sports. I'll, of course, see you again tomorrow. Till then, do take care. Bye-bye.